So in this segment, we're going to be discussing Natalie Elphicke joining the Labour Party, becoming the MP of that area for the Labour Party. She's not going to be running again after the election, so she's basically done once the general election's over. But Labour are in hot water around her because she was involved in some controversies, which we'll discuss. But she's committed more atrocities, not atrocities, but more issues, scandals that we didn't know about. So let's start off with a whopper of a question and a complete dismal answer from the man in question here.
When her husband,
the leader of the Labour Party,
was convicted of sexual assault, she called his victim a liar. Is this the sort of person who shares Labour values, who you want to have in the party?
I'm delighted to welcome Natalie Elphicke to the Labour Party. She's got a strong track record on issues such as housing. She's on the front line when it comes to the crisis of small boats.
This clip is so bad, it looks edited. He was asked a specific question around... Let's go back and listen to it.
When her husband was convicted of sexual assault, she called his victim a liar. Is this the sort of person who shares Labour values?
So this is a person who accused her husband's victims of being liars, despite the fact that her husband was convicted by the courts. And his default answer is, I'm delighted to have her as part of the Labour Party. This is honestly wild. And you can see this is a guy who's not comfortable in interviews. He defaults back to his answers in a crisis. I don't think he's that great. I'll be honest. Natalie Elphicke's anti-strike stance incompatible with Labour, says the TUC president. So the trade unions aren't happy about this because Natalie Elphicke, massively anti-trade union, she's voted for laws that weaken workers' rights. And then when P&O happened, when all the workers got fired, she ran out there saying, I'm against this. And everyone's like, you voted for this. So clearly the unions aren't happy about this, but I don't think Labour cares that much about the unions, especially since they're going to weaken their workers' rights bill that they wanted to put out once they got into government within the first 100 days. And allegedly, Natalie Elphicke lobbied the Justice Secretary to intervene in a criminal trial of her sex offender husband. Robert Buckland told her it was completely improper. Now, the fact that Robert Buckland hid or didn't come out with these allegations earlier, especially at the time, does say a lot about Robert Buckland's character in terms of how trustworthy he is. But, it's very clear that they are bitter about it, and the Tory MPs do kind of try to protect their own to an extent, especially depending on which colour and which gender you are. So there's that. A Labour MP also, what's her name, Elphicke, also won't say if her apology last specifically covers Jane, who said Elphicke raped her. She trashed Jane, saying she was embarrassingly and gushingly obsessed with him. Him being her husband. Jane was part of the Elphicke's unsuccessful libel case against the Sunday Times. Elphicke assured the Justice Secretary and Chief Whip she did not wish to discuss her husband during a meeting in Parliament ahead of trials in 2020. She's said to have done the opposite, so she got them under false pretences, according to Buckland. She denies the characterisation of this meeting, but will not say how. So, a lot of the defences I've seen of her don't really make sense. But, now she's T-Labour. Now the Labour goons will try and protect her. She also claims she did not lobby for him to have improved prison conditions. Two sources say they specifically recall her discussing the issues of his uncomfortable pillows. So clearly they were discussing his conditions. And so what you can see here is the Tory party do allegedly have a black book on sins of and scandals of people involved here, and we might be seeing that in action. We might see this information leaked within a few days of her leaving the Conservative Party. And they've done this, it's a right of hospital pass to the Labour Party because they've accepted this woman in to the party. They've accepted this person into the party who is extremely toxic, extremely anti-union. How do her views, a person who voted for the Miranda bill, how does she fit in to the Conservative Party? The alleged victim, Jane, as we mentioned earlier, says she can't accept Elphicke's apology, even if she does refer to her. It only covers a tiny part of the hurt and distress she inflicted on the woman who spoke up. At the time, I couldn't believe how she was enabling him. I still don't understand her actions. And this is Natalie Elphicke. This is the person the Labour Party accepted. Now, this was before. Some of this stuff would have been before I think the Labour Party might have known about this, but I think the Jane allegations were public because of he mentions the unsuccessful libel case against the Sunday Times. So the Labour Party should have known about this. They should have vetted it properly. But they saw, a golden opportunity to embarrass Sunak just before he was set to go to Dover, I think, and essentially make him look stupid on the small boats issue, because the Tory party ran on the small boats issue and Labour are trying to outflank them on this issue, not necessarily by going to the right of them by, kind of supporting the Miranda bill, but using the tough talk, talking about commanders and all of this stuff. And we'll discuss that in a separate video. But this Elphicke situation is a complete disaster, in my opinion. This is not going to be the genius move that I think the goons think it is. it's a Labour MP being questioned on it.
Do you have complete confidence in her as a Labour MP?
I have no reason to disbelieve her when she says it's nonsense and that's not her interpretation of the meeting.
But do you have complete confidence in her as a Labour MP?
Yeah, I've got no reason to disbelieve her when she says that's not her interpretation of the meeting.
Is anybody welcome in the Labour Party these days, Jonathan Ashworth? I mean, basically, it doesn't matter how right-wing you are, you're welcome in the Labour Party?
Well, no, there's no need to be flippant about it. I mean, look, the point...
Her views haven't changed, so he's not being flippant. She is a former member, I think, of the ERG. So, her views haven't really changed in this respect. So, is there anyone too right-wing for the Labour Party? That's the question. And that's something we'll discuss in a few minutes as well.
Isn't that what does her defection tell us? I think it tells us two things. That the Conservative government is decaying and disintegrating before her eyes. And that she, like thousands and thousands of Conservatives across the country, feels that after 14 years of failure, that it is time for change.
Okay, but that doesn't answer the question. Look,
in the Labour Party these days, Jonathan Ashworth? I mean, basically, it doesn't matter how right-wing you are, you're welcome in the Labour Party?
He doesn't dispute this allegation. He says, Ashworth, I think his name's Ashworth, yeah. He says the Tory party is in decay and it's time for change. But, what kind of change? That's the problem. So this idea that she's had a change of heart is simply untrue. She's not giving the appearance of having a change of heart. So essentially, the Labour Party is saying anyone who's right-wing enough, we will accept you. This is what David Cameron had to say about it, and this again is the Tory, the Conservative Party have no real defence here when they've leaked these allegations, but now it's, as Cameron kind of points out, it is kind of on the Labour Party to figure it out to an extent. Buckland has a lot of questions to answer, the sources have a lot of questions to answer as to why they didn't come out publicly when this stuff was being investigated.
Okay, let's talk at the end about politics. So Natalie Elphicke, till a few days ago, was in your party. The Sunday Times reports now she's a Labour MP that she lobbied ministers about her husband's court case. If that's the case, why did your Conservative colleagues not say anything about it at the time?
Look, I've only just seen the story in the papers. I've got no idea about it. All I know is that, Natalie Elphicke's...
Surely there should be some sort of internal investigation, though, into why it was covered up, no?
defection said a little bit about Natalie Elphicke, but I think it said rather a lot more about the Labour Party. He was actually quite a sort of right-wing MP who had absolutely no affinity with Labour policies or Labour people or Labour philosophy, and they welcome her in. I think it says a huge amount about the Labour Party. If you don't have a plan, if you don't have policies, if you don't have things you stand for, you will literally fall for anything.
I think to an extent the only thing that she might fall into place with is housing. That's about it, because apparently she's pro-housing, whatever that means. But point being is, like, she's very right-wing. She's more right-wing than any current Labour MP. Her voting record is pretty abysmal. This isn't it. That's all I'm going to say. This is not the genius move that the goons think it is. In terms of Elphicke, she said Rishi Sunak said he would stop the boats, but record numbers of small boats have arrived this year. He's letting the country down. Labour, the party, will tackle the issue of the small boats crossings. So it's clear why she defected. I don't think it was down to housing, really. But, it was something interesting, actually, what she does say here.
It is important to have defence, and they want to make sure. So I think we should have confidence that Labour are the party who will tackle this issue of the small boats crossings.
Just finally, then, have Labour offered you a peerage?
No. What I've said that I will do and what I've been asked to do is to contribute in the area of housing, which has been a long-standing area of experience.
So contribute how? Because it looks like this is another consultancy role that's being handed out. So Labour can't be accused as easily of sleaze, because the Tories are the ones that hand out, knighthoods and peerages. But point being is, it looks like she's been given a consultancy role. When you see that she's been asked to stay on to advise over housing, what expertise does she have in that area? I think she won an award, so maybe she does have some expertise. But when we look at their record, and we'll look at her specific voting record, it's not great on housing. So if we look here, they work for us. How she voted on housing: consistently voted against landlords paying for costs of building safety work, so that puts it on the leaseholders. And consistently voted against more prescriptive planning laws, which this is actually good. Consistently voted against stronger fire safety measures. So she's against stronger fire safety measures, and she wants leaseholders to foot bills. Natalie Elphicke voted to allow leaseholders to charge, I think it's missing a word there, to be charged for legally required building safety works, except cladding remediation. So a lot of these votes are for landlords to pass on costs onto the leaseholders. So again, that's not very progressive, is it? Of Elphicke, not very pro-housing either, not really pro-tenant, is it? She went on the record last year to say, don't trust Labour on immigration, they really want open borders. This is the party that welcomed her in. This is one we've already watched. That's fine. This is the Jess Phillips having to defend her new colleague now in Elphicke.
Natalie Elphicke wasn't the perpetrator of these crimes. Just to be completely clear, she wasn't the perpetrator. This is something that if it happened in your family, it'd be happening to you as well. You are, in some regard, a victim by association of these things. Now, I think that the way she behaved and her comments about it are, as I have repeatedly said, I think that they don't hold up to scrutiny, and she will be scrutinised on them both.
Don't hold up to scrutiny. She attacked victims after her husband was convicted. This is not about being held up to scrutiny. This is a horrible, horrible person who attacked the victims of someone, not just during the trial, but after the trial was finished. Her husband was convicted, and she attacked the victims of it. For anyone who is pro woman, or however you want to phrase it, cannot come up with these sorts of defences in good faith. You cannot defend someone who has said what she has said if you care about women's rights. And Jess Phillips, has been an advocate for women's rights. It looks like, she's throwing that out the door. She's thrown out of the window.
I fail to see the logic here. The price to pay for power.
Because this is quite literally the price she's paying here.
Internally by the Labour Party.
Do you feel comfortable? Do you feel comfortable being in the PLP alongside her?
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, to be perfectly honest, the idea that everybody's all really comfortable with everybody all the time, I don't know, because I've never spoken to the woman. Is the truth. So time will tell. I
mean, if you can see what she has said. You can listen to what she has said. You can talk to the victims of these crimes. I wouldn't be comfortable sitting or associating with that kind of person. Definitely not.
But I think actually there is an opportunity in Natalie Elphicke's, whether it's Road to Damascus or whatever it is. I think there is an opportunity to have a conversation that I would like the country to have about when this sort of thing happens in your family, when you are accused. I have never worked on a case where, for example, a stepfather's been accused by a daughter, or even a father has been accused by a daughter, or where somebody's husband has been accused of harassment, where the family didn't react like Natalie Elphicke. She is the country, I have to say.
What she is the country. She attacked the victims of the crime after he was convicted. This man was convicted in court, and she attacked the victims, saying that's a normal reaction is complete garbage. It's complete garbage. And this idea that families would react like that. If your family reacts to you after you've been convicted of not just one, I think it was an attack on just one woman. It was an attack on multiple. It was two, and there's other allegations as well. If that was my family member, I would not defend them. I would not defend them. So this idea that this is how the country would react is shameful. This is shameful behaviour from someone who's meant to be pro women's rights. I want to go back actually and play that again.
Father's been accused by a daughter, or even a father has been accused by a daughter, or where somebody's husband has been accused of harassment, where the family didn't react like Natalie Elphicke. She is the country, I have to say, at the moment in this regard. This is the most common reaction that people have, is not to believe. And that
this is literally what I'm saying. Like, it's not even the case that she attacked them after the case was over.
Brother, what's that?
I'm in absolute disbelief. I'm shocked by this clip. This is so ugly. The response here. Natalie Elphicke attacked people who are victims after the perpetrator was convicted. There is no defence of that kind of person unless you fundamentally do not believe in our judicial system and you think our judicial system got it wrong. That's the only defence you can come up with, but that's a massive unravelling of the systems we have in this country. This is ugly. This is ugly. Honestly, this is one of the worst things I've seen in terms of defences from a Labour MP, from a politician. I think honestly, it's up there. It's gross. And the question is, do we blame Jess Phillips for this defence of a person who said the things that she said, or is it the fault of the leadership who have put her in a position where she feels like she has to defend a colleague who has said these horrible statements? That's the question I want to put to the audience. crazy. Jess Phillips she did call for an independent investigation into Elphicke's lobbying claims, so we do actually need to see that checked out. So that's something I can respect her for. But this was ugly. It's just a really ugly defence, honestly. You got Jonathan Ashworth, who we heard from earlier.
What you might call Labour's broad church. This week you've got a new MP, Natalie Elphicke. If it turns out, as it's being reported this morning, that she did indeed try to lobby the Lord Chancellor on her husband's behalf, as is alleged, over the case for which he was imprisoned, you're going to have to withdraw the whip from her, aren't you?
Well, she said that is nonsense and is not her interpretation of the meeting. I mean, I obviously wasn't in the meeting, so I don't know.
Okay.
If this happened at the time, why did the Lord Chancellor not raise this issue at the time?
That, like I said earlier, that's a very good point. Why didn't Buckland come out earlier? And I think personally, it's down to the Conservative Party trying to protect their own MPs. And now she's not a Conservative MP, they feel like they don't have to protect her anymore. They can come out and slander her and make Labour have to defend her, which they have done to an embarrassing degree. This from Goodall.
Completely confident in her to investigate what has happened or what may have happened.
But she said that is not her interpretation of events.
Do you? I mean,
again, there's I think 3 sources that were in that meeting who say this is what happened. So you're going off 1 versus 3 there, which is always ropey.
When you say investigation, what do you mean?
Well, your party's investigated plenty.
We asking Robert Buckland to come to the Labour Party National Executive.
Your party has investigated plenty of left-wing MPs and many of its own over far less than this. But you're saying no investigation for Natalie Elphicke?
Well, they're different. They're different. They're different circumstances. They're different...
This could not be more serious, Jonathan Ashworth. This could not be more serious. She's accused.
Serious, but she's saying it's not her interpretation of the meeting.
But okay, cool. You accused Diane Abbott of, I think it was racism or something like that, right? That is not her interpretation of what happened. That's all. Apparently, that's all you have to say. If you're accused of anything, just say, well, that's not my interpretation of what happened, and Labour won't do you in for it. That's what you have to say. This is the new defence. Any MP who is threatened with whip removal has to say, that's not my interpretation of what happened.
Well, I mean, Diane Abbott has said that it was not her intention to be anti-Semitic or to write something that was unintentionally anti-Semitic. But she's still being investigated 11 months later.
No, I kind of wish we could have seen the answer. I don't have the clip, but that point Goodall made there is absolutely, correct. You got Annalise Dodds having to support, supporting... what's her name? Elphicke. I keep forgetting her name, which is crazy.
If she is, you can see that in her statement, that what she set out is absolutely fundamental to the Labour Party, making sure that we have a country that is secure, making sure that we're delivering on those issues of security, and also making sure that we're delivering on housing as well. And, there'll be many people watching this programme.
A person who consistently voted for leaseholders to foot the bill is talking about being pro-housing, okay.
Who will really understand what Natalie Elphicke was talking about in her statement when she said there's been that human impact from failure on housing policies from successive Conservative governments. They haven't got Britain building in the way that they need to. And it's only Labour that's got a plan to do so.
Can I go back to the question? I just want to kind of keep this interview focused, if that's possible, because I think our audience needs to understand why I asked that question. I asked that question specifically about whether Natalie Elphicke is a good fit for the Labour Party because she supported Liz Truss in the 2022 Tory leadership contest. And your party, the Labour Party, Sir Keir Starmer, has been very clear when it comes to the opinions of Liz Truss and her management when she was Prime Minister.
Yeah, they always use the argument Liz Truss crashed the economy. That's why we can't have nice things anymore.
Natalie Elphicke has harshly criticised Sir Keir Starmer's stance on immigration. She joined the pro-Brexit European Research Group, the ERG, and has reportedly criticised Labour for being soft on migration and untrustworthy when it comes...
She did say those things. We saw the article.
...comes to running the economy. So I ask because she seemed to have such opposing views to so many fundamental...
that's true. I think it's answered here.
...views to so many fundamental policies of the Labour Party, and yet you say now she is a good, natural fit for the party. Could you understand why that might be confusing?
People can change their minds. And as I said before, Natalie Elphicke is not the first Conservative MP who's taken this decision.
There's rumours that there's 3 more, and one of them's a former minister, so that should be quite interesting. Hopefully it's not Braverman, I swear to God.
Now,
a Labour Member of Parliament in the House of Commons, and Diane Abbott, the longest-serving black Member of Parliament who's a woman in our country's history, is currently not a Labour MP in the House of Commons because you are keeping her out of the party. How come Natalie Elphicke is an acceptable face for Labour in the House of Commons and Diane Abbott is an unacceptable face?
Obviously, Diane was a trailblazer for the Labour Party, an incredibly important figure. There is an independent complaint.
It's nonsense, it's up to the whip's office. It's up to Starmer to restore the whip, because he's the one that removed it. There's no independent process. And if there was, it wouldn't take a year to investigate what Diane Abbott did. They gave back the whip to MPs far quicker than this. It's complete garbage. They want her gone, and they want one of their stooges in there.
Complaints process that applies to complaints in the Labour Party. I'm not going to comment.
She criticised your anti-car policies, pandering to the unions over strikes, undermining the Rwanda bill. I mean, how do your views actually align with hers?
Well, I think anyone who looks at the statement that she's released today will see very clearly that she is someone who's absolutely passionate about changing our country for the better.
I just want to have a look at a tweet that the local Labour Party in Dover and Deal sent out about some of the MPs in Kent.
It's just so embarrassing. She was the most vehement anti-Labour MPs. Attacked the Labour Party constantly on a multitude of issues, and they've just accepted it with welcome arms. It just looks so stupid, the optics of it.
There you go, Dover and Deal Labour. After a bad Christmas on Twitter, we're wondering, is Miss Elphicke Kent's worst MP? I mean, you'll be pleased with that. You're on that list there, but you're not the worst MP. It's Natalie Elphicke. Have they changed their minds then?
Well, actually, what I've heard is that there is support for Natalie Elphicke's decision.
And, Politics Joe actually interviewed people there, and they're livid. Some of those people are livid about what she's done. So, it's very stupid. If they wanted a Labour MP there, they would have voted for a Labour MP in Kent. Let's be honest now. This from Nick Tyrone. This is a tweet worth framing. He's saying, I've said this before, Starmer's strategies always seem to be declaring his party is now basically Labour and the Tories combined, with the Tories now being UKIP. Downside is this pisses off people on the left. Upsides, 45% of the country votes for you. And so the accusation of them being red Tories is so accurate based on this guy's analysis. And he's a centrist writer. This is no like hard lefty. This is a guy who very much is a Starmer supporter saying this. They are red Tories. Like, that's it. That's the tweet. And this is Elphicke, this is an attack ad she was going to put out, I think a day or two before she had left the party. So, no, sorry, she had sent this out. She sent this leaflet out the day before her defection to the Labour Party, accusing the Labour Party. She's an attack ad she put out against the Labour Party saying, or no plan equals back to square one about the Labour Party, a weaker economy, unfunded spending, higher mortgage rates, higher taxes, uncontrolled immigration, voters pay more to achieve net zero, apprenticeships halved, less choice, lower standards. So, net zero is a key goal of Labour. It was also a key goal of the Conservatives under Boris Johnson. So what does Natalie Elphicke actually believe in? Because clearly she hasn't changed that much. If this is an ad she's putting out the days before, look, action to stop the small boats, she's obsessed with the small boats. But you see, there's not much here on housing. There's not much here. There's stuff on care. There's stuff on helping people in Dover and Deal. But there's nothing on housing. You've got something on stop the small boats, though. So you can see where her priorities are. And this from James O'Brien.
Jailed for sexual assault.
So it's about her husband. Former husband.
Which, and this is crucial, after which, because you are in this country innocent until you're proven guilty, except on Twitter, after his conviction and incarceration for sexual assault, she not only defended him by describing him as attractive and attracted to women and therefore ripe for a sort of dirty politics type hijack, but in doing so, of course, she also maligned his victims. And Keir Starmer, whose tenure as Director of Public Prosecutions saw perhaps even more personal effort put into protecting women from violence and sexual threat than almost any other area of public life, Keir Starmer has invited her into the Parliamentary Labour Party. And a lot of people are very upset about this for reasons that you do not need me to articulate, even though I kind of just have. And what I want you to talk to me about today is the wisdom of this decision. Because
what I'm going to say to you is Starmer, who, ran on this pro-women's rights thing, he did well as the CPS for the victims of grooming gangs and things like that. But when it comes to what Elphicke has said, because this is post-conviction, the stuff that she had said, some of the stuff, extremely, really depraved stuff here. And she was accepting. All she did was, apparently she just apologised and said sorry. That was it. That's all it took.
I think it's genius.
And so obviously this is before all the more recent stuff that we talked about with, the Buckland stuff. But again, I'm just not seeing the genius of it.
I'm holding my nose because I think Natalie Elphicke is repellent, but I am cheering the defection because of what it tells you about the Labour Party in general as an electoral proposition, and also what it tells you about Keir Starmer's leadership. This man, I think we can all...
He's accepting someone who's repellent into the party.
...say now, without a single scintilla of doubt or scepticism, this man is utterly dedicated to getting into Downing Street. The question then becomes, why is he utterly dedicated to getting into Downing Street? Is it so that he can see his name on the honours board at Eton College and then not really bother about any other aspect of the job? Is it so that he can keep his...
It's a beautiful straw man building by James O'Brien, as always.
...sponsors on Tofton Street happy by...
Might keep his sponsors in big business happy, given that they're the ones propping up the Labour Party right now.
...introducing their mad policies and watching the country go off a cliff 20 minutes later? Is it because he wants to introduce a sort of form of unachievable ideological purity that the left have been crying out for years? No, none of these things. Keir Starmer wants to be Prime Minister because I believe that he wants to improve the lot of most people in this country.
So one of the ways he could do that is by putting capital gains tax rate the same as income tax. One of the ways he could do that is by increasing taxes on the wealthy and redistributing that money. That would have an immediate impact on people in this country and also boost the economy because you have more people with disposable income. So, if you wanted to improve the lot of people in this country, he has a multitude of options that are very easy to take up, but he's not going to do them. So his idea is going to improve the lot of people. He's going to tinker around the edges. Let's be honest. He's going to draw in the lines.
Make this country a fairer and more equitable place. And he wants to do that for everybody, not just Labour supporters. And he wants to draw into his project, he wants to win the votes of people who you might not find very palatable by saying, yes, you are welcome.
This is a person in Elphicke that he described as repellent, by the way.
Keir Starmer has sent a message to the country, to people who wouldn't have voted for him, and still might not, but he's opened negotiations with parts of the country, whether you're talking about the Red Wall or whether you're talking about the voters of Kent. Keir Starmer has sent a message to potential Labour voters that his umbrella is enormous.
His umbrella isn't enormous, though, because what he's done is ostracise people on the left. And, especially, not just them, but also women, I think, as well, and we'll discuss that in a minute. In order to appeal to I don't even know who, to be honest with you, more racist, kind of xenophobic voters, Tory voters. I'm not sure who the target is, given that no one really likes Elphicke that much. I don't think anyone does, and we'll discuss, one of the aspects of it in a few minutes, because I've got a clip ready for that. But I don't think this is the genius move that O'Brien thinks it is. But again, all he's going to do is cite the poll data. But again, who is this meant to appeal to at this point? But also beyond that, does he even need to do this, given that they keep talking about the stonking points lead in the polls? Does he even have to do moves like this? Some Labour MPs fear that the Labour Party is overstretching here. And I think that might be the case, that they're going too far in that direction of too determined to win, to the point where they're going to make mistakes because they're going to make decisions that are reckless, that are seen as ruthless, in order to win extra votes in other seats. But I think they're going to keep damaging their own base. That's what we're going to see here, and they're going to turn off, I think, other voters that might have turned out for them. The idea, this whole thing, they're guaranteed to win the election, but when you look at that 2029 kind of general election, that period of time, that's where my real concern is.
Temporarily permissible to be a little bit footballified until you've got the ball over the line.
So essentially saying it's okay to be a shill now because now it's my guy in charge, so I'm going to overlook some of the things he's saying and some of the things he's doing because I'm determined for my team to score. Notice how he wasn't that charitable to Jeremy Corbyn. Notice that he accused those people of being, the footballification of politics. He was one of the better, I think, commentators on Corbyn in terms of calling him out on certain things, and I respected him a bit for that. I did have some respect for him because, I think that needs to be done. People calling out Corbyn, people calling out Boris Johnson. Now, now suddenly his guy's there.
Temporarily permissible to be a little bit footballified until you've got the ball over the line.
And again, I'm going to ask you guys. That is the wrong bit.
I fail to see the logic here. The price to pay for power.
I'm not even done yet, guys. There's so much more to discuss regarding this, because, you know, the question time panel did ask, is she a liability or an asset?
Grace, Ian's question is, will Natalie Elphicke be an asset to the Labour Party or a liability? And I wonder if you might address the woman's question there about whoever gets in, will they be full of promises which actually won't amount to a,
Yeah, look, I think what's interesting about this is that anyone who's criticised Labour recently has been told, you're just trying to get the Tories in, and here's Keir Starmer literally getting the Tories into his own party. And this isn't just any Tory, as we've heard. She's, pretty right-wing. She's made some bad comments about Starmer. She's also made some pretty terrible comments about the victims of her ex-husband's sexual assault. And I mean, just imagine if you are a sexual assault survivor looking at this image of Elphicke sitting behind Keir Starmer, what are you going to think? Are you going to think, I'm able to trust this party?
I mean, I should point out, Grace, as you know, that she has now apologised.
She's apologised, yeah, which, again, an interesting double standard there, right? She said something pretty terrible and she apologised, and Keir Starmer has welcomed her open arms into the Labour Party. Diane Abbott, a while ago, said something that she regretted that was wrong. She apologised, and she is still not inside the Labour Party.
And, the argument of she has now apologised. This court case where her husband was convicted, I think, was a couple of years ago. She has now apologised. Diane Abbott, I think, apologised the next day. So, you got to question someone's remorse there as well, if it's taken them, a long time to apologise for something.
This is a woman who receives more abuse than any other MP, a woman who has been a long-serving Labour MP. And I just
don't know why Lisa Nandy looks so mad.
Find that double standard really, really upsetting, actually. And I think it speaks to the point that the lady made about, can we really trust politicians? I think this actually sits at the core of our democracy right now. Trust in political parties is at all-time lows, because people see politicians making promises and then going into Westminster and saying, oh, it's actually too difficult, there's no money left, we can't do any of the things that we promised you. And it's, I think, a really cynical move on the part of our politicians just to say, that we couldn't possibly fulfil these promises that we've been making to people. Even more cynical not to even make the promises in the first place, as I think Keir Starmer is failing to do, because you basically say either there's not enough money left to fix the NHS, or I'm going to encounter too much opposition, I can't possibly do anything. We have gone through in this parliament, this has been the first parliament in modern history where living standards have fallen, and that comes on the back of the longest period of wage stagnation since the 1800s. People are desperate for change, and if politicians don't deliver that, I'm worried about the future for our democracy.
And Grace, I'm right in saying...
And this is one of the points I've made for a while, which is that if we've seen the Conservative Party fail, if the Labour Party don't go on to at least improve people's living standards, where do you think that's going to push people into the arms of? Where does the country go from there, where the political system, the major parties fail? Where do you think that leads people to? This from Question Time, I found this quite interesting.
To the arms of Labour.
Well, Natalie Elphicke, in her time in Parliament, has done lots of things that I've been scratching my head about her time here. I thought it was unusual, some bizarre comments she gave after her husband had been convicted of sexually assaulting a woman. She said it was because he was charismatic, wealthy and a man. She's made lots of funny decisions that I don't understand. This is just another one of them. But I also think it's really interesting.
But you let her stay in the Conservative Party, not you personally, but she stayed in the Conservative.
It wasn't up to me personally, but to look at the
Did you voice those
motivation...
Did you voice those concerns?
About Natalie?
Yeah.
Well, look, I voiced lots of concerns about lots...
This is what I mean. The Tory Party will protect their own until it becomes, a political problem. And that's why I think they were more than happy to cover up. He may have raised concerns. I doubt he did. But point being is they were more than happy to cover up when she was there. But now that she's gone, that protective umbrella is gone. And now, we're seeing the fallout of kind of these accusations of what she's allegedly done here. And the argument of she interprets things differently to what Robert Buckland is saying. If there's more than one or two witnesses in the room, I don't think that's going to be much of a defence there, to be honest.
Lots of things that I was chairman, but they must remain confidential. But what I think it does say...
The other thing he says, I don't understand how Labour can be this broad a church to allow kind of a former ERG member in, which is fair, I think. But, we go back to the age-old problem, which is centrist. Politics is all about compromise. So compromise with the left. Centrist, oh God, no, I meant compromise with the racists. And this clip I found absolutely hilarious.
But Labour would be happy to have her
going out and campaigning on
It's about Elphicke.
their behalf?
Well, she can, if she wants to campaign on our behalf, that's fine. Anybody's welcome to leaflet for us. Anybody's welcome to do voter ID. You're welcome.
So, is there any Tory MP that you wouldn't welcome in the party?
I'd love Jacob Rees-Mogg to be a member of the Parliamentary Labour Party.
But why? Why would you want someone like Rees-Mogg, an avid Brexiteer, a guy who talked about cheap shoes for peasants or whatever? That's what I think O'Brien accused him of. Why the hell would you want someone like O'Brien in the party? And he was serious about it because he doubles down. It's just nuts, honestly. Like, they will happily take anyone from, not just the centre right, but the right wing of politics. It's just bizarre to me, honestly. There's no morals or standards here. This is what John McDonnell had to say about
Apparently, a Labour spokesman was
about Nigel Farage.
Asked after Prime Minister's questions today whether the Labour Party would take Nigel Farage in, and couldn't give a straightforward no.
You're joking.
I'm just telling you what I've been told.
Is that right? Well, I don't know who that Labour spokesperson was, but they need a proper briefing on what Labour history is and what our Labour values are. And
This is political heritage, as Mourinho might say.
Certainly not supporting and allowing into the party, I think, the likes of Nigel Farage, who has been nothing but, as far as I'm concerned, one of the major causes of division within our society.
They're happy to accept someone like Elphicke. That's not a criticism of McDonnell. That's, how much worse is Farage compared to Elphicke? I don't think I don't think the line would be that far from each other. This from Sienna Rogers, who has good connections within the Labour Party in terms of a journalistic point of view.
He's saying, as you would expect them to, things like, well, why isn't Diane Abbott included in the party if Natalie Elphicke can be? But then there were also MPs on the front bench, in the middle of the party, very much mainstream, who was kind of raising concerns about previous comments she have made about trade unionism, talking about militant unionism, that sort of thing. That really disturbs them because from whatever wing of the party they're from, they're very, strongly supportive of the trade unions. But also, of course, as Nick mentioned earlier, those comments around Charlie Elphicke.
So the question is, ideologically, is she with the Labour Party? No. If anything, she's against them. So how does she really fit in?
Elphicke. So people really talking about how has the Labour leadership just gone a little bit too far with this particular defection?
Is this one a little bit too spicy?
It actually looks very much as if Keir Starmer was very pleased with himself about capturing Natalie Elphicke.
Absolutely, the leadership is pleased, and you can see why. I mean, there is a clear short-term political gain. I mean, very much the headline that most people will see is the government is falling apart, the Conservatives are in chaos, Rishi Sunak isn't holding his party together.
But do you think, and I know that from what Nick was saying, that it is being started by Labour women, and we don't need to go into the detail of that, but do you think...
I think they should have gone into the detail of it, to be honest.
A resistance might build a head of steam to this?
I think defections are here today, gone tomorrow a lot of the time in terms of the news. And
that's true. In terms of, I think his name's Christian Wakefield, the doctor guy, they were very... they were defections, but no one really talks about them. With Elphicke, I think that she'll be in the news cycle for a while because of these allegations. By a while, I mean about a week, maybe, depending on how much information we're fed.
And from speaking to these Labour women who are concerned, they're not at the moment planning a sort of collective action like a public letter or anything like that, but they are privately raising their concerns. One of them said to me, actually this ties in to the reaction they got when they raised their concerns, was tapping into another concern they have, that the leadership just isn't very good at managing its relationships with MPs generally.
And this is something we noticed, that this was a big criticism of Starmer when the Labour Party kind of failed in the 2020 local elections, where Starmer was looking at resigning. There were accusations that the Labour leadership was just hard to contact and wasn't very approachable. We can see that still looks to be a concern. And she mentions the fact that, given that if Labour do get a big majority, there'll be even more of a concern that the Labour Party won't, the Labour leadership won't manage the MPs properly, which I think will be a big problem. And this is from a follower of the channel, saying, yeah, sure, she voted for more and more sewage in the rivers and the sea. She's xenophobic, Labour's values, what a shame, which is true. Very true. She's voted for some really bad things, but the Labour Party have accepted her with open arms. Burke is saying, so Labour is becoming a Tory bin then. Professor Paul Bernal saying, dear at UK Labour, is there anyone you wouldn't welcome with open arms? Jacob Rees-Mogg, Nadine Dorries, Paul Pot, Nigel Farage. Maybe, yeah, Natalie Elphicke has defected from the Labour Party. She was a person who told Rashford he should perfect his game rather than playing politics. This is when Rashford was trying to get, free school meals for kids outside of term time. Rashford actually doing a genuinely good thing for society, and he was told, focus on your game more, despite the fact that Marcus Rashford, at probably half her age, has achieved more than she ever will. And NJ saying, honestly, this is about the quote, the tweet about Labour and the Tories, combined under Starmer, I guess, saying, honestly, going mad for 18 months, we've been saying that Labour are red Tories and getting screamed at for being Tory neighbours or Trotskyists or whatever, only for Liberal commentariat to just admit that yes, they are red Tories, but here's why that's good and forensic, which is pretty true. It's pretty true. Elphicke's defection controversy worth it for the ruthless Starmer as he spoils Sunak's economy moment on a Dover visit with his new Labour MP, because I think Sunak wanted to celebrate the fact that the economy grew by 0.6, I think it was 0.06 or 0.6%, which again, given the state of the economy, is that really much to write home about? I don't know. But point being is that I don't think this is it. This whole thing has just been abhorrent in my opinion. And for the Labour leadership to make such a mistake, I think they've accepted the wrong defection. Let me put it that way. When you look at her history, when you look at the things she had said before, that should have been a major red flag. And the argument of, well, she would have just joined Reform. Maybe she was better off in Reform. That's more ideological to her. What would they have? They got 30p Lee and then her, two really toxic former Tory MPs. I mean, how does that boost their profile that much? I genuinely don't see it. But I think this really just damages the Labour Party. I'm not seeing it. The allegations are pretty bad. Trying to get her husband better present conditions. I think she actively lobbied the judge as well. That was one of the accusations around her. I mean, it's just horrible. Tory MP suspended for trying to influence judge in the Elphicke case. There was a separate matter of her writing to a judge after his conviction to stop character references submitted by his supporters from being published. I mean, this is not a good person. This is just not a good person at all. And the Labour Party should not be accepting someone like this. And you look at, someone like, if you look at what this has done to someone like Jess Phillips, I mean, I personally, I don't like her very much, but, the defence she's putting out there is just so ugly. Because I think she's felt like she's in a position where she's going to have to defend a colleague. It's just, she should never have been accepted in the Labour Party, in my personal opinion. And I think that's what Jess Phillips also said. I think it's either in this interview or in a different one, where she said she personally wouldn't have accepted Elphicke into the party. And I don't have a lot of love for these Labour MPs who are backing the decision, especially the front benchers, but should we feel sympathy for people who have been put in a position where the leadership and the cabinet have failed them? Maybe a little bit, because we've seen them misplay consistently on these things, and this is just really worrying. I think that Starmer just consistently makes the wrong decisions, and it takes him so long to figure out the right decisions. Over Gaza, he was horrendous initially, and I'll be doing a video on that in a couple of days about Labour kind of fumbling Gaza further, and kind of the damage it's done in terms of electorally as well. They did well in the local elections, but it was close in that Birmingham race because of the independent candidate who was running there. We'll be discussing that in a minute, but I mean, just look at this for an answer, genuinely.
When her husband was convicted of sexual assault, she called his victim a liar. Is this the sort of person who shares Labour values who you want to have in the party?
I'm delighted to welcome Natalie Elphicke to the Labour Party. She's got a strong track record on issues such as housing. She's on the front line when it comes to the crisis of...
This is your guy who made the genius move. This is it. When it comes to this stuff, I'ma do my stuff. But honestly, this is your champion, really, guys? Really? This is your guy right here? Oh, when it comes to criticisms of, the commentary, the pro-Labour goons and the Labour Party, I was really trying to keep it PG. But, you guys are just clowns when it comes to this. You're just so desperate to say, oh, this guy's such a genius, and so desperate to glaze those poll numbers. But in reality, this man is fumbling into success here, stumbling into it. I just, this is not like he's done bits here. I'm so sick of this, honestly. How are you going to let this person who's so toxic come into the Labour Party? Genuinely, one of probably the worst Tory MPs there, and you just let her waltz in to the party. Forget the fact that she's not going to run again. That's fine. She's a sitting Labour MP, and her colleagues now in the Labour Party are going to have to defend her because they felt that that's going to cause massive problems if they don't. You know, like certain MPs are going to feel like their career's on the line here if they don't defend this person who made abhorrent statements about victims of horrendous crimes. And this is the situation you put them in. Just get this guy gone, honestly. The sooner the Tories are done, the sooner that election comes around, Labour win, the sooner just get rid of Starmer, honestly. It's just embarrassing. And if Labour lose because of criticism, that's fine.
That's right. Don't blame yourself. Blame me.